Hey everybody, this is the final chapter, chapter 12 of The Outsiders. The hearing wasn't anything like I thought it would be. Besides Derry Soda and me, nobody was there except Randy and his parents, and Cherry Valance and her parents, and a couple of the other guys who had jumped Johnny and me that night. I don't know what I expected the whole thing to be like. I guess I've been watching too many Perry Mason shows. Oh yeah, the doctor was there, and he had a long talk about the judge before the hearing. I didn't know what he had to do with it then, but I do now. See, first Randy was questioned. He looked a little nervous, and I wish they'd let him have a cigarette. I wish they'd let me have a cigarette, come to think of it. I was more than a little shaky myself. Derry told me to keep my mouth shut, no matter what Randy and everybody else said, that I would eventually get my turn. All the associates told the same story and stuck mainly to the truth, except that they said Johnny had killed Bob, which was ridiculous. I figured I would straighten that whole thing out, though, in a minute. Jerry told them what happened before and after John and I had been jumped, and I think I saw a couple of tears slide down her cheeks, but I'm not sure. Her voice was sure steady even when she was crying. The judge questioned everyone carefully, but nothing real emotional or exciting happened, like it ever does on the TV shows. He asked Derry and Soda a little bit about Dally, I think to check our background and find out what kind of guys we were hanging around with. Was he a real good buddy of ours? Derry said, "Yes, sir." Was he looking straight at the judge? He didn't flinch either. Soda looked at me like he was sentencing me to the electric chair before he gave the same answer. I was real proud of both of them. Dally had been one of our gang, and we weren't going to desert him. Not now, not after he had died. I thought the judge would never get around to questioning me. Man, I was scared and stiff by the time he did. And you know what? They didn't ask me a thing about Bob's killing. All the judge did was ask me if I liked living with Derry, if I liked school, what kind of grades I made, stuff like that. I couldn't figure it out then, but later I found out that the doctor had been talking to the judge, and I figured out what it was about. I guess I looked as scared as I really was because the judge grinned at me and looked at me and told me even to quit chewing my fingernails. That's a habit I have. Then he said I was acquitted and the whole case was closed, just like that. He didn't even give me a chance to talk much, but that didn't bother me a lot. I didn't feel like talking anyway. I wish I could say that everything went back to normal after that, but it didn't, especially for me. I started running into things like the door, and I kept tripping over the coffee table and losing things. I've always been kind of absent-minded, but man, then I was lucky if I could even get home from school with the right notebook and both my shoes on. I walked all the way home once in my stocking feet and didn't even notice it until Steve made some bright remark about it. I guess I left my shoes in the locker room at school, but I never did find them. And another thing, I also began to quit eating. I used to eat like a horse, but all of a sudden I wasn't hungry anymore. Everything tasted like bologna. I was lousing up my schoolwork too, and I didn't do too badly in math because Derry checked over my homework in that regard, but he usually would be able to catch all my mistakes in math, but in English, in English I was washed out. I usually made all A's in English, mostly because my teacher made us do compositions all the time. I mean, I know I don't talk good English. Have you ever seen a hood talk good English, though? But honestly, I can write good, when I try at least. At least I used to be able to. Now I'm lucky to be able to get D's in my composition class. It bothered my English teacher a lot, the way I was goofing up, I mean. He's a real good guy who makes us think, and you can tell he's interested in you as a person, too. One day he told me to stay in after the rest of the class left. "Pony boy, I'd like to talk to you about your grades." Man, I wish I could beat it out of there. I knew it was flunking out of the class, but golly, I couldn't help it. "There's not much to talk about, judging from your scores, Pony. I'll give you that straight. You're failing this class right now. But taking into consideration the circumstances, if you come up with a good semester theme, I'm going to pass you to at least a C grade." Taking into my circumstances, huh? Brother, was there ever a way to tell me that he knew I was goofing up because I'd been in a lot of trouble? At least that was a roundabout way of putting it, I guess. The first week of school after the hearing had been awful. People I knew wouldn't talk to me, and people I didn't know would come right up and ask me about the whole news. Sometimes even teachers and my history teacher, she acted as if she was scared of me, even though I never caused any trouble in her class. You can bet that made me feel real tough, and that's TUFF, folks. "Yes, sir," I said. "I'll try." What's the theme supposed to be on? "It could be on anything you think's important enough to write about. And it isn't a reference theme. I want your own ideas about your own experiences. I'll write about my first trip to the zoo. Oh boy, oh boy. Yes, sir, I said, as I got out of there as fast as I could. At lunch hour, I met Two-Bit and Steve out by the back parking lot, and we drove out to a little neighborhood grocery store to buy cigarettes and Cokes and some candy bars. The store was Grease Hangout, and that was all we ever had for lunch. The Socs were causing a lot of trouble in the school cafeteria. They were throwing silverware and stuff, and everybody tried to blame it on us greasers. We all got a big laugh out of that. Greasers rarely even eat in the cafeteria. I was drinking in the fender of Steve's car, smoking and drinking a Pepsi, while he and Two-Bit were inside talking to some girls when a car drove up, and out came 3 Socs. I sat there, I looked at them, and I took another swallow of the Pepsi. To be honest with you, I wasn't scared. It was the oddest feeling in the world. I just didn't feel anything. Scared, mad, anything, just zero. You're the guy that killed Bob Sheldon? One of them said. And he was a friend of ours. We don't like nobody killing our friends, especially greasers. Big deal. I busted the end of my bottle and I held on the neck and tossed away my cigarette. You get back into your car and you'll get split. Or you're going to get split up right now. I held up my bottle at them. They looked up a little surprised and one of them backed up. I mean it. I hopped off my car. I've had it with all you. I've gotten all I can take from you guys. I started towards them, holding the bottle the way Tim Shepard holds a switch, out the way for myself in a loose but firm hold. I guess they knew I meant business because they got into their car and they drove off. You really would have used that bottle, wouldn't you? Two-Bit had been watching from the doorway. Steve and me were backing you up, of course, but I guess we didn't need to. You would have really cut them up, wouldn't you? I guess I would have, I said, with a sigh. I didn't see what Two-Bit was sweating about. Anyone else would have done the same thing, and Two-Bit wouldn't even have thought about it as long as I did. Pony Boy, listen. Don't you get tough on us. You're not like the rest of us, and please, we don't want you to be either. What's the matter with Two-Bit? I knew as well as he did that if you got tough and you didn't get hurt, that as soon as you got tough, that meant you didn't get hurt. Get smart, and no one can ever touch you. What in the world are you doing? Two-Bit's voice broke into my thoughts. I looked up at him. I'm picking up the glass. He stared at me for a second, and he grinned. You little son of a gun, he said in a relieved voice. I didn't know what he was talking about, so I just went on picking up the glass from the bottle end and put it in the trash. I didn't want anyone to get a flat tire. I tried to write that theme when I got home. I really did, mostly because Derry told me to do it, or else. I thought about writing about Dad, but I couldn't. It's going to be a long time before I can even think about my parents. A long time. I tried writing about Soda's horse, Mickey Mouse, but I couldn't get that right either. It always came out sounding corny. So I tried writing names across the paper. Daryl Shane Curtis Jr., Soda Patrick Curtis, Ponyboy Michael Curtis. Then I drew horses all over it. That was going to get a good grade, like all get out, let me tell you. Hey, did the mail come in yet? Soda slammed the door and yelled for the mail, but the way he does every morning when he comes home from work, or every day. I was in the bedroom, and I knew he would throw his jacket over the sofa and miss it, take off his shoes, and go into the kitchen for a glass of chocolate milk, because that's what he always does every day of his life. He always runs around those stocking feet. He doesn't like shoes. Then he did a funny thing. He came in, flopped down the bed, and started smoking a cigarette. He hardly ever smokes, except when something is really bugging him, or when he wants to look away, or when he wants to look tough. And he doesn't have to impress us, because we all know he's tough. So I figured something was bothering him. How was work? It's okay. Something wrong? He shook his head. I shrugged and went back to drawing horses. So cooked dinner that night and everything came out right. That was unusual because he's always trying something different. One time we had green pancakes even. Green! I can tell you one thing. If you got a brother like Soda Pop, you're never bored. All through supper, Soda was quiet, and he didn't eat much. That was really unusual too. Most of the time, you can't shut him up or fill him up. Derry didn't seem to notice, so I didn't say anything. Then after supper, me and Derry got into a fuss about the fourth one we just had that week. This one started, we got into another fuss, and this was about the fourth fight we got into that week. This one started because I hadn't done anything on the theme, and I wanted to go for a ride. It used to be that I just stand there and let Derry yell at me, but lately I've been yelling right back. What about my schoolwork? I finally shouted. I'll have to get a job as soon as I get out of school anyway. Look at Soda. He's doing all right, and he dropped out. Can you just lay off of me? You're not going to drop off. Listen, you got the brains and you got the grades to get a scholarship, and we can put you through college. But schoolwork's not the point. You're living in a vacuum, Pony, and you're going to have to cut it out. Johnny and Dally were our buddies too, but you don't see us stop living because you lose someone. I thought you knew that by now. You don't quit. And anytime you don't like the way I'm running things, you can get out. I went tight and cold. We never talked about Dallas or Johnny. You like that, wouldn't you? You'd like me just to get out. Well, it's not that easy, is it, Soda? But when I looked up at Soda, I stopped. His face was white, and when he looked at me, his eyes were wide in a pained expression. And I suddenly remembered Curly Shepard's face when he slipped off a telephone pole and broke his arm. Don't! Oh, you guys, why can't you stop? He jumped up suddenly and bolted out the door. Derry and I were dumbstruck. Derry picked up the envelope that Soda had dropped. It's a letter he wrote Sandy, Derry said without expression. It was returned unopened from her. So that's what's been dug in Soda all afternoon. And I hadn't even bothered to find out. And while I was thinking about it, I realized that I never had ever paid much attention to Soda's problems. Derry and I just took for granted that he wouldn't ever have problems. We took it for granted that Soda, he was going to always be okay. When Sandy went to Florida, it wasn't Soda, Pony Boy. He told me he loved her. But I guess she didn't love him the way he thought she did because it wasn't him. You don't have to draw me a picture, I said. He wanted to marry her anyways, but she just left him. Derry was looking at me with a puzzled expression. Why didn't he tell you? I didn't think he'd tell Steve or Two-Bit, but I thought he would at least told you everything. Honestly, maybe Soda tried to tell me, but I guess I've been kind of shut down recently. How many times has Soda started to tell me something only to find that I was daydreaming or stuck in a book? He would always listen to me no matter what he was doing, though. He cried every night that week you were gone, Derry said slowly. Both you and Sandy he lost in the same week. He put the envelope down. Come on, we got to go after him. We chased Soda clear to the park. We were gaining on him, but he had a block's head start. Circle around and cut him off, Derry ordered. I'll stay right behind. Even out of condition, I was the best runner of the family. I headed through the trees and cut off the halfway across the park. He veered off to the right, but I caught him in a flying tackle before he'd gone more than a couple of steps, and knocked the wind out of both of us. We lay there gasping for a minute or two, then Soda sat up and brushed the grass off of his shirt. You should have gone out for football instead of track. Where do you think you were going? I lay flat on the back and I looked up. Derry came up and dropped down beside us. Soda shrugged. I don't know, it's just, I can't stand to hear y'all fight. Sometimes, guys, I just gotta get out of there. It's like I'm the middleman in a tug of war and I'm always being split in half by both of you dig? Derry gave me a startled look. Neither of us had realized what our fights were doing to Soda. I was sick with cold and shame. What he said was the truth. Derry and I did play tug of war with him and we never thought about how much it might hurt him. Soda was fiddling with the dead grass. I mean, I can't take sides. It'd be a lot easier if I could, but I see both sides. Derry yells too much and tries too hard and takes everything too serious, and Pony Boy, you just don't think enough. You don't realize all Derry's giving up just to give us a good life. He's giving you the chance that he had to miss out on. He could have stuck you in a home somewhere and worked his way through college, Pony Boy. But I'm telling you the truth. I dropped out because I'm dumb. I really did try in school, but you saw my grades. Look, I'm happy working at a gas station with cars. You'd never be happy, though, doing something like that. And Derry, you ought to try to understand him more and quit bugging him every time he makes a little mistake. He feels things differently than you do. He gave us a pleading look. Call it, you two. It's bad enough having to listen to it, but when you start trying to get me to take sides, I can't bear it anymore. We're all we got, guys. We ought to be able to stick together against everything. If we don't have each other, we don't have anything. And if you don't have anything, you end up like Dallas. And I don't mean dead either. I mean like before he was dead. And that's worse than being dead. Please. He wiped his eyes on his arm. Please don't fight anymore. Derry looked real worried. And I suddenly realized that Derry was only 20. That he wasn't so much older. That he couldn't feel hurt or scared and lost like the rest of us. I saw that I expected Derry to do all the understanding without really trying to understand him at all. And he had given up on Soda. He had given up a lot for Soda and me. Sure, little buddy, we're not going to fight anymore, are we, Pony? Hey, Ponyboy, don't you start trying true. Please. One bald baby is enough for this family. I'm not crying, I said. But maybe I was. I don't remember. Soda gave me a playful punch on the shoulder. No more fights, okay, Ponyboy? Derry said. Okay. And I meant it. Derry and I would probably still have misunderstandings because we were too different not to, but we weren't going to fight, at least not in front of Soda. Soda Pop would always be the middleman, but that didn't mean he had to keep getting pulled apart. Instead of Derry and me pulling him apart, he'd be pulling us together from now on. Well, I'm cold, Soda said. How about we get going home? I'll race you, I challenged, leaping up. It was a real nice night for a race. The air was clear and cold, and so it was clean and sparkled. The moon wasn't out, but the stars lit up everything. It was quiet except for the sound of our feet on the cement and the dry, scraping sound of leaves blowing across the street. It was a real nice night, I guess. I was still out of shape because we were tied. All three of us tied. No, I guess I think we tied because we, at the end, just wanted to all stay together. I still don't want to do my homework that night, though. I hunted around for a book to read, but I'd read almost everything in the house about 50 million times, even Derry's copy of The Carpetbaggers, though he'd told me I wasn't old enough to read it. I thought so, too, after I finished it, and finally I picked up Gone with the Wind and I looked it over for a long time. I knew Johnny was dead. I'd known that, even when I was sick and pretending that he wasn't. And it was Johnny, not me, who had killed Bob. To be honest with you guys, I knew that, too. I just thought that maybe if I played like Johnny wasn't dead, it wouldn't hurt so much. You know, the way Two-Bit, after the police had taken Dally's body away, had griped because he had lost his switchblade when they searched Dallas. Is that what's bothering you, a switchblade? A red-eyed Steve had snapped at him. Nah, but that's what I'm wishing was all that was bothering me, Two-Bit said back. It still hurt anyway. You know a guy a long time, and I mean you really know him, and you get used to the idea that you don't just get used to the idea that he's dead overnight. Johnny was something more than a buddy to all of us. I guess he had listened to more beefs and more problems from more people than any of us. He was a guy that could really listen to you. Listen and care about what you were saying. And that honestly is something rare. And I couldn't forget him telling me that he hadn't done enough, hadn't been out of our neighborhood all his life, and then it was too late. I took a deep breath. I opened my book, and suddenly I saw that there was a slip of paper that fell out onto the floor. And I picked it up. Ponyboy, I asked the nurse to give you this book so you could finish it. I suddenly realized it was Johnny's handwriting. I went on reading, almost hearing Johnny's quiet voice. The doctor came in a while ago, but I knew anyway. I keep getting tireder and tireder. Listen, I don't mind dying now. It was worth it. It was worth saving those kids. Their lives are worth more than mine. They have more to live for. Some of their parents came to thank me, and I know it was worth it. I want you to tell Dally it was worth it too. I'm just going to miss you guys. I've been thinking about it, and that poem, you know that guy who wrote it? He meant that you're gold when you're a kid, like green. When you're a kid, everything's new dawn. It's dawn. It's just that when you get used to everything, that it's day. Like the way you dig sunsets, Pony, that's gold. You got to keep it that way. It's good to be that way. I want you to tell Dally to look at one. He'll probably think you're crazy, but ask him to do it for me. I don't think he's ever really seen a sunset, not like the way we have. And don't be so bugged over being a greaser. You still have a lot of time to make yourself be whatever you want to be. There's still a lot of good in the world. I want you to tell Dally that for me, please. I don't think he knows about all the good that there truly is. Your buddy, Johnny. Tell Dally? Gosh, it was too late to tell Dally. But honestly, even if I did tell Dally, would he have ever listened? I could picture hundreds and hundreds of boys living on the wrong side of the cities, boys with black eyes who jumped out of their own shadows. Hundreds of boys who might have watched sunsets and looked at stars and ached for something better. I could see boys going down under the streetlights because they were mean and tough and hated the world, and it was too late to tell them that there was still good in it, and that they wouldn't believe you if you did. It was too vast a problem to be a personal thing. There should be help. Someone should tell them before it was too late. Someone should tell their side of the story, and maybe people would understand then and wouldn't be so quick to judge a boy by the amount of hair oil he wore. It was important to me. So I picked up the phone book and I called my English teacher. Mr. Side, this is Ponyboy. That theme, how long could it be? Why, not less than 5 pages. He sounded a little surprised. I'd forgotten it was this late at night, I guess. Can it be longer than that? Well, certainly, Pony Boy, as long as you want it to be. Thanks, I said, and I hung up. I sat down and I picked up my pen and I thought for a moment. I'm remembering a handsome dark boy with a reckless grin and a hot temper. A tough towhead boy with a cigarette in his mouth and a bitter grin on his hard face. Remembering, and this time it didn't hurt, I remembered a quiet, defeated-looking 16-year-old whose hair needed cutting badly and who had black eyes with a frightened expression to them. 1 week had taken all three of them, and I decided that I would tell people, beginning with my English teacher. I wondered for a long time how to start this theme, how to start writing about something that was so important to me. And I finally began like this. When I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only two things on my mind: Paul Newman and a ride home. And that, guys, is the end of the novel. I want you guys to think back. If I was in class right now, the first question I'd ask is, what is the significance of the end of the novel? What has he started writing at the end with those last two sentences? Does anyone know? If you don't know, everybody look back at the very beginning of the book, how the book begins, and then look at how the book ends, and you're going to know some similarities. Some other things I want you guys to think about, guys, is the theme of this book here, which I think, first off, what do you guys think the theme is, I suppose I should ask, but also I want you guys to be thinking about that whole poem, that Nothing Gold Can Stay poem, the poem that we read earlier, even in this year, and how that poem, Nothing Gold Can Stay, how it relates to this novel. Why did it mean so much to Johnny, and why did Johnny bring it up in his letter at the end of the day for Pony Boy? Lastly, I want you guys to think, did you like this book, or did you not? I want you to think about how you would rate this book one way or the other. Guys, I hope everyone is doing well. I hope you enjoy this book, and I hope everybody takes care. Bye.